Hello and welcome to the big World Cup match preview pod ahead of Ireland's Crunch Pool B showdown with the world champion Springboks on Saturday night in Paris. Both sides are 2 from 2. Ireland's bonus points keeping them top for now, but a win at the weekend will give whichever team, be it the world number one Ireland or reigning champion South Africa, control of the pool with just one game left to go. Joining me tonight, we have an all-star cast. Now, some would say a 4-star, 5-star cast, but we won't go there. We have the brilliant cast and ensemble of Riaan Louw, Cian Wheeler, and Jack Fogarty. So welcome back on, lads.
As it.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Although Quaylon 3-1 split,
3-1, I know.
Dodgy, I mean, is it moral?
That's a good question. It mightn't be. I actually had Razzie on the phone to me and he was like, why don't you have 8 guests? I said, I can't do it. I said, I can't. I don't have the bandwidth. So that's why Jack Nienaber is actually going to Leinster, because better bandwidth up there. Yeah, that's a fact. We'll save the pleasantries, if you can call it that, for the end and predictions and all that, because I want to get started with the squads, because as someone pointed out on Twitter, you wouldn't even notice that they named their teams. You would not notice. But we'll start with the quieter of the two, which is Ireland. Just 3 switches from last weekend, with Jemison Gibson-Park starting at 9, while Dan Sheehan and Jack Crowley come onto the bench ahead of Rob Herring and Ross Byrne, respectively. While Connacht's Bundyaki looks set to win his 50th cap against the side he won his first cap against back in 2017. So, very quickly, the Irish side reads as follows. A front row of Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher and Tadhg Furlong. Tadhg Byrne and James Reiner in the second row, with a back row of Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Fleer and Caelan Doris. The back line contains Jemison Gibson-Park, Johnny Sexton, who captains the side from out half. Bundyaki is alongside Gary Ringrose in the centre, with James Lowe, Matt Hansen and Hugo Keaton making up the back three. And the bench finally reads as follows. Dan Sheehan, Dave Kilcoyne, Finlay Bealham, Ian Henderson, Ryan Baird, Conor Murray, Jack Crowley and Robbie Henshaw. So I will start with yourself, Keno. What's your thoughts on this Irish? Well, we'll start with the starting 15.
Yeah. I mean, it's about as strong a selection, I think, as we could have hoped for. It's a luxury of an almost completely clean bill of health. And it was good to see them stick with their guns on the 5-3 split. Faith in the players and faith in the game plan. In the front row, you got Porter, Kelleher, and Furlong. I mean, Porter, immensely important player for Ireland, not only in the tight but also in at rucks. Massively important. Furlong has been tying it down his side at a world level for some time. I think Kelleher is the right choice as well for this game. I think Porter scrummages better with Kelleher beside him. There's less of that height disparity. There's less of that edge that can sometimes be exploited on his side. So yeah, I like the front row selection works for me. Second row, Byrne and Ryan. Farrell resisted the temptation to bulk up the row. Byrne and Ryan, they're athletic and their work rate. I'd expect to see a fair bit of defensive jumping off the back of that selection, that duo. They both offer a lot of the breakdown as well. Obviously, kind of Ryan more defensively and Byrne offensively in the poaching, but really, both of them offer so much around the park as well. And they're going to have to go, one of them probably for 80 minutes at least. Back row, O'Mahony, van der Fleer and Doris. So you got 2 additional line-out options there. I expect at least 1 poach or near poach from Peter O'Mahony. That's a minimum. Van der Fleer's defensive work rate is going to be crucial against the carrying from Detroit and Visa. But the breakdown battle is going to be massive. So back rows are huge in this game. I think painting a good picture for Ben O'Keefe is going to be key. He's a little bit sticky around breakdowns. Which actually I think suits Ireland fairly well, but only if they are completely on point and get on the right side of them. Halfbacks, Sexton and Gibson-Park. It's kind of the most obvious come to play marker in the selection, I think. Sexton's taking along nicely, really not missing a beat since injury and incident, let's call it. Kept him away from,
What was that
oh,
incident? I
Explain away.
wonder.
I can't even remember. It was so long ago.
We should
And it was
all
dealt
thank
with so
Jacko Piper
quickly.
that we're in this situation, that he's not suspended any longer. Anyways,
Uh,
where are you, Keno? Go on.
yeah, he's right on song. He's kind of he's picked up right where he left off and looking pretty fired up, and he's hitting all the markers. But yeah, he'll need to be really on. This is going to need to be a top drawer performance from him. He's going to need to be able to pick out the right options at the line, and he's going to have to nail his kicks from hand on the tee. It's really going to be everything is needed in this game. As for Gibbs Park, Murray probably would have indicated a more measured territorial approach. Gibson Park, I think, says we're going to play the more the on ball style that we've seen from Ireland when they go on all out attack. Centers Bundy and Gary, really the only possible starting pairing for me anyway. Aki is undoubtedly in the form of his career right now. He is on fire. And he's so much more than a running threat now as well. You know, his distribution game has come on so well. Execution and picking out the passes to make. So Ringrose works with him really well as a link player. You know, he's always a danger to the line. But they are both going to need to be absolutely bulletproof in defense. They're going to be tested. Back three, Keenan, Hansen, and Lowe. Again, it's a back three that picks itself. They're going to be tested in the air. Collective kicking game is going to be needed for them to be right on point again. Probably see some 50-22 attempts from them, but more importantly, I think it's going to be to find grass with that South African back three more so than anything else. And they're going to need to try and avoid 1v1s defensively against their counterparts. But I'm sure the other back three feel pretty much the same way. So
No, it's as strong as an Irish team as we've probably put out in a while. And granted, I know Dan Sheehan is probably a better player than Ronan Kelleher, but in terms of the game that we're playing on Saturday, Ronan Kelleher is not a bad option. His lineups were fantastic the last day. There's great variety to them, and he just brings that more power. You mentioned that height difference in scrummaging definitely makes a difference. I thought he locked out really well the last day against Tonga, but as I quipped, I think it was on the prod with Tom the last day. The only problem is the French TV angles. You actually couldn't see the scrums properly, really. They were just showing us Wayne Barnes' head zoomed in. But Jack, we'll move on to the bench with yourself. That's a really experienced Irish bench. Like, there's 376 caps there, almost 50 caps a man. And the vast majority of these players have either won Grand Slams, URCs, Heineken Cups, whatever it may be. In terms of, like, we've said it before, that every time Ireland come into a World Cup, their bench and their depth seems to get better. There's a real comfort to that particular bench that's selected, isn't there?
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, like you said, there's a great amount of experience on there, but there's those, I guess for me, there's those three guys in Dan Sheehan, Ryan Baird, and Jack Crowley who just give that little bit of excitement. And I think they're all going to have to play their part, because, you know, we'll come on to the South African bench in a second, but just in terms of, you know, this being a full squad effort, it's going to make it very, very interesting when they use the bench, because obviously we know exactly when the bomb squad are going to come out. So it's just going to be very, very interesting when, you know, we decide to pull off guys like Furlong and Kelleher. I totally agree with your point on Kelleher. I think he's the guy to kind of start in that front row. And I think Dave Kilcoyne is going to have a massive game when he comes on. If he comes on, we might see a very long stint from Porter. We've seen him do it before. He might be in for one again, and delighted to see Henderson in there. A lot of people saying Joe McCarthy could be in there, which isn't a bad shout. He was fantastic against Romania, and he's really looks like he's come on and you know, put a lot of work into his all round game, you know, the fundamentals and stuff. So, you know, probably was closer than a lot of people thought, but I'm really delighted they went with Hendy, because he's looked incredibly sharp and incredibly dynamic when he's come on. So we might even see him or Byrne slip into the back row for that last little stint of the game. We know that the starting 15 can go the distance, really, but there's a lot of firepower in that bench. But it's very different, shall we say, in styles to the South Africans, but it's going to be a hell of a finish with the two benches.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned Henderson, because I wrote a piece before there about 2 weeks ago now, and was wondering, could we possibly see McCarthy leapfrog Henderson? But then as other people have said, and listen, you can interpret this whatever way you want, but if Joe McCarthy ends up as the player Ian Henderson is, he'll be a very good player. Like, that's the reality of it. Henderson's still very good, I find he's probably better in green because there's less being expected of him. There's less being asked. He has the Tyg Burns, the Caelan Doris's around him to do the different things. And I suppose, Rian, no disrespect to Henry, I don't expect you to name him as the player that scares you the most. But when you look at that Irish side, you've mentioned before, you think they're systematically really, really good. Like a top of the range iPhone, I believe you were saying earlier on today. But what part of that South African side, or sorry, Freudian slip, what part of that Irish side would you be scared of from a South African perspective?
It's pretty obvious to me. Hooker. At hooker, you guys have way much more depth than we have now. We have that one big name, Marks, that's not there anymore. So knowing that in the second half, we'll probably bring on Deon Fourie as a makeshift hooker. That's not the same as bringing on Malcolm Marks against Dan Cian. We're so used to the New Zealand 1-2 punch of, say, Taylor or Takiaho, and then Dan Cole, who's a lot like Dan Cian or Dane Cole. So to have the same thing here, but we can't bring on Marks or take Marks off and bring on Mbonambi, it's really scary for me. That line out in the second half with Ian Henderson as well, who's very good. I don't think he really jumps because he's a much bigger lock, isn't he? He's more on the Etzebeth vibe, but just our lineouts and our hooker replacements are not as good quality as yours, and that's very scary for me. We are so reliant on our pack, and I feel like we have really hamstrung ourselves with Deon Fourie as a little makeshift hooker.
Yeah, and it's weird in that regard that that's the risk South Africa deciding to take, because they're a set piece orientated team.
Yeah.
Like we know this, and I'm literally searching for it right now as we speak. But I believe it was Angus Gus who had a piece up about statistics of the line out throwers, and like there is a big drop off from Malcolm Marks to the rest. Now I understand Marks isn't playing URC and all that. He's not playing as many games, but I believe I have it here now. Like Joseph Draper's thrown at 84%. Bongi's is at 89, but Marks was ahead of that, and you have to remember that, like, I'm trying to phrase this in the right way, but you're not just losing a lineout with Marks, you're losing so much more. He is a disruptor, he is a ball carrier, he's power, and I think,
and even on the blind side attack, he's a very good pair of hands as well.
Yeah,
because you expect him to run or carry the ball. He's a very good guy. There's so many runs where Mapimpi is the guy who gets put away by Marks because he can be used as a decoy. People expect him to carry. So that is the main thing for me. It's not just the set piece, it's the all-round game. Over the ball, Deon Fourie is good at that, as we know, but the carry game, there's very few as good as Marks in the world.
No, absolutely. And if Ireland were coming into this game without Dan Sheehan, we would have to highlight the fact that Dan Sheehan is probably the best mobile hooker in the game. And I want to talk about, where the game's going to be won and lost and all that in a minute. But South Africa did name a team this week. I know, big surprise, guys. I know, no one heard it. Keane's looking to find it here as we speak. And they went for 7-1 split. So for those who don't know, that's 7 forwards. Again, you wouldn't have seen this anywhere else. You're welcome. Sorry, he just take the piss here now at this stage. There's no place for Willie Leroux, Makazole Mapimpi, or Handré Pollard. Pollard was just called into the squad this week in place of Marks. Mapimpi hat-trick hero last week, and Willie Leroux been the mainstay of South African teams for the best part of a decade now. None of them feature, but they do line up as follows with Ulster, well, soon to be Ulster prop Stephen Kitsoff, alongside Bongi and Mbonambi and Frans Malherbe in the front row. Eben Etzebeth has returned after a very, very brief injury stint to partner Franco Mostert in the locks. Sia Khaleesi does captain the side from, well, is it blindside or open side, Rian? Which do you call it?
He's an open side.
You
6
say
is
open
our
side.
open side. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't call it blindside. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Peter Steptoe is at blindside then, wearing 7, with Jasper Visa of Leicester Tigers at number 8. The backline contains Faf de Klerk and Manny Lebok at halfbacks. Yes, guys, LeBlock, as some Munster fans have started to call him. It's Numi de Allende, formerly of Munster, and Jesse Creel, one of the most shredded men in rugby, in the centres, while Cheslin Colby and Curtly Ansa partner Damien Willemse in the back 3. None of them need an introduction. And finally, that bench, here it is. Dion Foree is named as the replacement hooker, with Marco van Staden, who'll wear the number 20 shirt, or 21 shirt, apologies, also being tasked with lineouts. It's tricky, I know. Oxenche and Trevor Naikane are the replacement props. Jean Klein and Orge Sneyman are the replacement second rows. If anyone has ever heard of them, I don't know. Haven't been mentioned on here anyway. Van Staden, as previously mentioned, is wearing the number 21 alongside Quadra Smith and Cobus Reinach, the sole recognised back on the South African bench. Rian, it's an open question about your thoughts on the selection, but I feel like we know which way you're going to go with this.
As I've said, I think this is a experimental side. I think the real team was the one that played against Scotland, because that's the game we had to win. I think if I'm going to be honest in my head, I think this is like a compliment to Ireland. We know you'll beat Scotland, so we're going to just screw around a bit and do a 7-1, see how it goes. If we lose, doesn't matter. You'll beat Scotland, hopefully. And we just want to see if it works. I think I really don't understand why they've done this. They're trying to push boundaries. They want to see maybe if there's, I don't know, some massive problem in camp before knockouts or something. See what Quagga Smith can do. Can he play at 13? But mostly, I think if you look at the way the squad is built up, it looks like the first half we are gonna, because Ireland play with ruck speed. That's the thing. 1 second rucks, be as quick as possible. Jamison Gibson Park is there to get the ball away as quickly as possible. So this 15 is ruck counter ruckers. They are there to not necessarily steal the ball. They are there to slow it as much as possible, get over the ball, get into Jamison Gibson Park's face, make his life difficult. Second half, the bench comes on. Those are all poachers, Dion Foree, Marco van Staden, and Quagga Smith. So I think they're going to try and see, how do we slow Ireland down? In the first half, we're doing it with counter-rucking. Maybe that means a lot of kicking, and instead of trying to catch the ball, we try and hit you and get over you. And then the second half, maybe when your cleaners are a bit slower to the ball, what we're going to try and do is get over it, maybe win some penalties, get down the field with our fresher forwards. We can win lineouts, get mauls going, that kind of stuff. That's maybe what I think is the idea with this thing. No,
that would have been some of the consensus I have heard here. Foree, one of the top poachers in the URC this season, he does bring that. He is, I suppose I have to be conscious, not everyone here will be watching the Stormers quite regularly who listen. He does play predominantly as a blindside, whatever you call it down there, again, apologies, but he does play predominantly as a blindside, has barely played hooker in the last 5 years, really. And he's been asked to come in there and do it. Marco van Staden has been practicing his lineouts, but again, like Josh van der Fleer against Scotland, you don't want it to come to that situation.
Yeah.
You don't, like, I understand there's a time for plan B and plan C and plan D and whatever it is. You don't actually want it to come to that. It feels like maybe it's just Razzie up to his tricks, or Nineveh up to his tricks, or whatever, but I don't know. It does. There is something about it, all right, that does seem a bit off. And I suppose I'll come to you next, Cian, because as much as we were always talking about, okay, South Africans, great scrum, South Africa, great maul, South Africa, fantastic blitz defense, probably the best in the world. They're not unflappable. Like, they do lose games, the more than every other test team. So where do you think Ireland can target South Africa on Saturday?
Well, yeah, just as you said, I mean, their win rate has been good of late, but I mean, they've since January 22, they have 6 losses from 21 games, 71% win rate, and Ireland are 2 losses from 21s, 90% win rate. So it does happen, but it hasn't happened too much lately. So they've been building it the right way for this World Cup. I can see a couple of places where they might try and target it. I don't know if they'll do all of them, but we'll see. First and foremost is they'll probably go to target that disruption in the pack. You know, Marks is a massive loss in the loose, but also notably in structured set piece. So the line out and the scrum are both areas I think that Ireland could put some pressure on. To some extent with Bongi and Mbonambi's throwing, just to disrupt, probably more so than anything else. But I think once the bench comes on, that's really when they'll probably go after it hard. I think you'll see jumper up at 2 almost every time, just make it really hard for them to hit a mark, force them to go middle, force them to go back to the end, and force them to potentially overthrow, miss cue. These things happen when, I mean, this is top level international hooking. Like, it's not easy. It's really not. You're not going to learn how to do it in 4 weeks in camp. And also there's a possibility they'll chase that in the scrum as well, in the latter half an hour, 20 minutes, depending on when when the Magnificent Seven are released. What else are we going to do? We're going to test the backs, I think. Libok is, capable of some great play, but he is also relatively inexperienced at an international level. His kicking from the tee has been inconsistent at best. Like, his no-look kick last was brilliant against I can't remember if that was Scotland.
Isn't it fitting though that came against Scotland, Keane? Because so often we see this with Finn as well,
Finn
where
Russell.
he does one thing and it's all over social media, but he could kick 3 kicks out in the full in the next 10 minutes. We'll never hear about it.
Well, that's it.
And Libok kind of did, like, Libok got man the match, and to be fair, I don't think he was man the match that day either.
It was a really low scoring match, and it could have come down to kicks if 1 or 2 breaks had gone Scotland's way. And the narrative would have been very, very different around it. So, that could cost. And it's been proved that he can be got at with the right game plan. It was proved by some Irish team. It was a final. I can't remember.
That was the pitch. That wasn't some other team. I've
heard that a lot now. I can blame the pitch so far, but at the end of the day, this isn't junior rugby. We can't blame. It's not that standard of pitch. Well, it kind of was. I wonder who went after him. It must Connacht, maybe. Must have been Connacht.
I think as well, with the weighting of the pure sheer number of forwards that are going to be on the pitch for South Africa, Ireland will probably run at the centres and back 3 as much as they can, as well, all of the backs basically. Again, in that Scotland match, these tackle success rates weren't great from the backs. I think Libok had a 56% success rate. Diolende was 44. Creel was better at 75. Colby 60, Valemsa 56, and KLA 56. So there was space. I know that the way that it works is that they are shepherding you back in towards the big guys who are definitely smashing you. But there's potential to be there, especially as players tire later on. There's no replacements for them. If you can consistently run at them or kick where you're making them work, there's going to be gaps eventually, because the forwards aren't as quick as the backs. The backs have a specific job, and they're going to have to do it for 80 minutes, and that is going to be tough. As well, actually, I expect a fair number of contestables to be going in to that back 5. I think they're gonna kick high and they're gonna chase. So it'll be a matter of getting around the shepherding. But I think if they can actually get those pinpoint kicks in and chase hard, again, you could be going for. If you get in over the player, get someone else in as well. More than one, you get in behind and cause trouble. Other than that, tempo. It's going to be controlling the tempo throughout.
Ball and play is a huge one in that regard, like, because South Africa, they're transitioning towards the on-ball counter-tradition style game, but they're not fully there yet either. Ireland they are further down that cycle, and we've seen it with Ireland-France. Like, one of the most impressive things when Ireland beat France this year was they came out a million miles an hour. It was an energy sapping first half. We were tired watching it, never mind playing in it. And then they just smothered them. They made France run and run. They kicked. They had them turn around, and they were just fatigued then in the last 10 minutes. And then that's when Ireland found a new gear. Craig Casey was very good in those last 10 minutes. Caelan Doris, Guy Ring was, of course, got that try. And that's when it's something like that. If you do see that from Ireland again, when you talk about like having to go back to prior moments to win big games, that's one of them. We are relying on that experience. And like, as we said, South Africa, they're not perfect. Ireland aren't perfect either. They're sides who can be beaten. And Jack, I'll come to you now, because as much as we look at kind of where it's going to be won, loss, and whatever, this is two very exciting teams on paper. There's a lot to like about it, and you have a situation where across the 223s, there's so many world-class players. So in terms of matchups, be it maybe centers, back rows, half-backs, whatever it may be, what ones are you excited to see on Saturday night?
I mean, shall I just go through the teams again and just
you can if you want, but you'd want to give a reason as well.
I mean,
in case no one knows who's there for South Africa,
Yeah.
Right, we'll go through the bench again now, lads. I'll read that. So Dion, go on.
No. But I think for me, what's really exciting is just the matchup of the styles, because I think we've got the highly kind of structured but bit of chaos in Ireland, where they want to have their pods of forwards and tip on passes, and it's all very much high risk, high reward. Like it's clearly worked, and they've worked at it for years. And you've got the slightly lower risk kind of play from South Africa, which is we're gonna just fly up, smash you back, and we're just gonna win territory, and we're just gonna squeeze you to death, and you just can't live with us. But in terms of actual matchups, I know they won't go head to head in the scrums, but the two tight heads are going to be huge for the first half. Frans Malherbe, Tyke Furlong, they're both going to be crucial to just winning settled, clean ball. I think second row is really, really interesting, because I don't know if Riaan, you'd agree, but Franco Mostert instead of, obviously, Lou Diego is no longer there. I think he's a massive loss for the Boks. I think he really kind of shores up that line out and maul. And then I think this might be the two best back rows in world rugby right now. I think it's just absolutely tantalizing. I mean, Peter O'Mahony and Peter Steph Toy going face to face. Kate Khaleesi and Van der Fleer, unbelievable. And then Jasper Wiese, who is probably rising rapidly up the ranks of one of the best number 8s in world rugby, going up against arguably the best in Caelan Doris. It's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, going into the backs, Faf de Klerk, I think, is going to be an absolute pest for us on Saturday night. I think he's going to be just flying up out of the line.
Game. Crucial.
Yeah. Not only I think he's a better kicker, he's a better organizer. He's going to help Manny Labok out loads. I think Faf is just he's just a brilliant terrier. And what Jameson does for us on attack, I think Faf does the opposite for defense for the Boks. He's just going to be in our faces all night, and it's probably going to cause some problems. There might be some missed passes, but Ireland just need to keep at it and keep going with it. And then other than that, it's just going to be Jean Klein and RG Snyman against all the Munster lads, and just seeing who reacts the best out of those fellas. So yeah, it's honestly so exciting. I absolutely cannot wait for this. It's going to be absolute fireworks. It's going to be class.
It promises to be that. Like, you can sense it once you stay away from the kind of the bait talk of the 7-1 and all that. There's some really, really good pieces on where this game will be won and lost and everything. It's hard not to get sucked into it. But I might actually just come to you, Riaan, on the kind of the last two questions in terms of matchups and everything. But where do you think Ireland match up well against the South African team? Because personally, I feel like Jack mentioned kind of second row, like that pack, as much as, South Africa might have the power. If there's ever a team that can probably negate that, it feels like Ireland can. You look at, say, like Malherbe, listen, he's a good scrummager, but he's old school. He's not a passer like Tyke Furlong or whatnot.
Yeah.
And like again, Visa he's a good player. He's probably more of the modern number 8 than Vermeulen, but again, that's part of their evolution rather than the end product. So
Yeah.
if you were in Irish shoes, because again, wary of what podcast you're on here, where do
It's
you
a
think
3-1,
they'd
yeah.
match up well? Or even I forgot to mention centre as well. Like the Irish centres are flying at the moment and are familiar because Dale Ende would have played against Aki and
Yeah.
was a good bit.
For me, it's that back row: Omani, Van der Vlier, Doris. It is maybe the best at keeping your ball fast in the world. Obviously, Peter Omani, for his chirps, he's going to get in people's heads. He's going to get Visa angry.
Oh, yes.
It has to be Visa, doesn't it? Because he's kind of a
Yeah,
walking
no,
yellow
you
card.
can
sometimes.
already see that he's had Visa's biography and every post he's ever had on Instagram
Yeah.
to try and just get into under his skin. So I'm sure they're going to go after Visa. And then also Mostert, because he's a very, very, very good lock. He's got a massive work rate. He's not really a big ball carrier. So his work rate, I don't know, it's very high. He's a great lock, but he's not Lotejager. He doesn't have the hands. He's an easy pick off when you need to if he's going to carry the ball, he won't really be offloading. So I think they'll be targeting him to see if he's going to carry. They'll try and get over the ball when he's got it. And then on the bench, Ian Henderson, I rate very highly. I see him as an old school, like almost a Bulls type of lock, just this big, angry guy who hits hard, hits you back in the tackle. I remember the last time, what was the score? 38 something in Dublin. And Ian Henderson he destroyed us in that match. He tackled Etzebeth multiple meters backward. He is such a good replacement to have coming off the bench. Luckily, we've got our own Irishman in John Klein, not just who are used to beating him. So at least there'll be that. Some of your Irish guys might be a bit scared of our Irish guys because our Irish guys are all champions.
See, I can't even shoot that down because I'm proud that you read that.
Right, I'll try. So there might be some of that, at least the intimidation factor from our guys. But yeah, I think it's a back row for me. I've seen Doris and Van der Vlier and Omani multiple phases, phase after phase, line breaks, everything. They are just always there. They always manage to keep the ruck speed high. We have to try and tie them up somehow. Either pin them on the ground with little naughty plays or pulling back shirts. There's going to be a bit of off the ball needed in this game just to slow down. We are going to try, I promise you, everything we can to slow that ball down. And hopefully the ref doesn't have eyes on the back of his head.
Well, we can say the same thing because listen, we might be Irish fans, but we recognise how do Ireland get quick ball? The likes of James Ryan is coming in a million miles an hour, and we do need a referee to turn the blind eye. His arms are fine, but nah, it's grand.
He needs to be very careful though.
Has to.
He's been getting away with that for a while now.
No, long enough, but as long as it doesn't catch up to us, that's
another thing. Is Andrew Porter. I don't know when refs are gonna catch up on his scrumming technique.
He's scrummaged a bit better now. The last I found he scrummaged better the last day in particular. Because granted, I was in the same boat as you, Riaan. I thought his angles he wasn't painting a good picture. Because it's funny, about 2 years ago he was painting a perfect picture.
Yeah,
but he was being roasted because other people were just slightly creating the angle and putting him under pressure. Then he went too far the other way. So I think he's found it. And listen, it's 20 days into the World Cup or whatever, not even, or 2 weeks into the World Cup or whatever. But it is also the factor of referees kind of seeing scrums as just get the ball out of there.
Yeah.
That's kind of been the main point. So I feel like might be a good thing for Ireland, do you know?
I think him with either Kelleher or Herring, I think the height difference is better, but I think he's been chasing it less as well. And that's allowed him to keep a better shape. He keeps he's been starting off straighter and keeping it better. I'm not great at the scrums. you know, kind of back in the back row pretending to push. So
No, I don't like it, Tom Savage of Three Red Kings made a great point. He usually scrummages better against more technical lads than bigger lads, but he did a very good job of Tammy Fine the last day. Malherbe is a big man, but again, Munster kind of negated his threat in the URC this year as well. Like, again, he is definitely a scrummaging threat, but he can be stabilized, and stable will help Ireland. That'll be huge.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna see much chasing penalties in the scrum. I think it's going to be the aim of the game is going to be steady. Just throw a tablecloth over it. That's what we're after, especially in the first hour.
And especially when you have as people made the point, I think it was Bernard Jackman might have been one of the people who made this point that, like, if you're going to get out South Africa, you can't just go wide. Or it was Ron O'Gara who made this point. You can't just go wide. It won't work, because they will shoot up and they'll isolate you. And Ireland got caught doing that. But when they straightened, especially in that November game, when they kind of,
that
bet
inside
the first
ball
man,
around the ruck. Oof.
Exactly. And Ireland have a couple of moves that predate Andy Farrell from the Joe Schmidt era that highlight this. And I wouldn't be surprised because Ireland have thrown, I've noticed this, an awful lot to the back of the lineup in the last two games. And I do feel like either that's a brilliant double bluff or they're saying, right, what are you going to do? Because your blitz defense, that's where you want us throwing it at. But what if we have something up our sleeve? So it's a very interesting one. And, I have a preview article going up this weekend that I do talk about that line out and the importance of, say, Peter O'Mahony. Because if Bongi's throws can be got at, then go after them from minute one. That's it's going to come down to such fine margins. You can't afford to just shadow box for 70 minutes. You can't go that long into it. And I am conscious of time here, lads, because I want to get into predictions and everything. So I'll start with yourself, Jack, first of all. Firstly, who do you think is going to win? But also, where do you see this game being won and lost? And I am conscious that we are three fans who could be way off the mark as well. But where do you see it being won and lost, and by who?
Yeah. So I guess the best way I can kind of put it in my head, the way I've been thinking about it, is we've got, Ireland playing to their potential. And if Ireland play well and play the game that we all see and we all think, geez, doesn't that look lovely? Then yes, I think Ireland will win. However, South Africa don't have to do an awful lot to disrupt that if they're just very organized and just play their game, which is why I love this matchup so much, is because the styles are completely opposite. Not say that
styles make fights, isn't that it?
That's just it. And I'm not saying South Africa can't just rip us apart, because they can, because if you've seen the back three, like, those boys are going to get some ball and we are going to have to shut them down big time. But, if South Africa can stop us from playing what we want to play, then I don't think we have a plan B. I don't think we can just go to the air and start kicking and hope for the best. So I think that we're gonna win, but I think that it's gonna be, 6 to 9 points in that kind of realm. And I'll just put it out there, from what you guys were saying about, set pieces and lineouts and all that kind of stuff. I reckon that our lovely future captain James Ryan might just have an absolute stormer in this one, because I can see him winning lineouts, just winning rucks, and just being an absolute 80-minute workhorse, and just absolutely going for it. So I'm tipping him for man of the match.
Oh, going man of the match and all. Jesus. Even though man of the match awards, man of the match awards in these games have been fairly iffy so far. So I'm starting to think if you say James Ryan, that means Johnny Sexton's going to be the best player on the bench. Just the way
James Lowe with 3 carries.
Yeah, exactly. James Lowe or Hugo Keenan makes 70 yards off one return and get man of the match because it skews the stats. Riaan, I'll come to you next, because I'm conscious of not ending on a downer if you want to pick South Africa here. So I'm gonna come to you. Leslie, you can be as honest as you like, again,
35-7 to us. You guys don't get out of your 22 for the first 20 minutes.
That sounds like torture.
Good lads.
2 yellow cards, multiple rucks and mauls and scrums go our way. No, I don't know. Last time we played, it was very close. It was a few kicks and we would have won that one. So I don't see us being like underdogs. I think this is an even matchup. We are fresh. We have rotated a lot more than you guys have. So a lot of these guys' tanks are full. I think if we slow down your ball, you're going to look like Scotland look. You're going to be panicking. So
Whoa.
if we slow down your ball, you're going to be panicking. You're going to be passing or running down blind alleys. So I think if we can get to your rucks, if we can get to Jamison Gibson Park, we should be able to take this with maybe a try and a penalties worth of points.
Yeah.
A lot
I'm
of faith
confident we can do that.
in Livox kicking, holding up, that you can actually build that
We
lead as
score
well.
in
With that try.
sevens. We don't score in threes. That's the old South Africa. This is
You mean you're scoring fives?
Five. Five's there, so sevens.
Okay. To be fair, I do like Livox as a player, but I do think there's the element of shiny new thing about him that, you know, we kind of look away from his faults.
He's a URC winner and a final and a silver medalist. I don't know why people don't rate him. He has played in high.
You can't say that about the Irish out half. You know,
he's a great player.
No, listen, I'll end the digs here. Cian, I'll throw it over to you. Finally, we have one South Africa, one Ireland so far. Which way are you leaning? You'll be there if I'm correct.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm taking the macro view on this, so I'm going to try to anyway. So it's great to see coaches and squads have faith in what they've been doing. You know, they've been planning for this for 2 years. Both sides carrying in decent momentum. 16 on the bounce for Ireland, 6 on the bounce for South Africa. But South Africa put in a much better Rugby World Cup pedigree. So I'd say that all about evens out there and abouts. Ireland got the better in Dublin last time they met, only just. They were missing Lowe, Aki, and Jameson Gibson Park of the day and had injuries to McCluskey, Murray, and Furlong.
And Sexton the last 10 minutes, if I'm right, no? Or is that the one game he did play?
That's what happens when you play us. So just be sure you're going into a blender this week.
You've gone 7-1. You can't say anything.
We're missing Conan and Healy this time, but South Africa's form is arguably better than it was at that point. So again, I'd say that's about evens there and abouts. 7-1 bench. It could be a game changer, and I mean that in both senses. It's a risk that could backfire as much as a potential game winner. I did some research beforehand, chatted to you off camera about it. As of kickoff, there's an average of 1.76 backs injuries, which haven't happened to South Africa based on match play hours. Now, that was a piece of research that was done for previous World Cups as well, and it's been pretty steady throughout. Now, I mean, obviously this is probabilities, so nothing's nailed on, but that will have reached 2.64 by full time. If one of those comes through at the wrong time, in the wrong place, I mean, there's a 50% chance that any of those injuries will be not game ending for the person. They happen. That's a knock. They happen. But the probability distribution of those injuries is it's 34% chance that it would be a halfback, 25% chance to be an inside back, and 41% chance to be an outside back. If it hits one of the inside backs,
I feel like that's bigger. I feel like Creel is kind of the one that you'd be like.
Creel is the big one, yeah.
Yeah, like tail end at 13 isn't as scary as say bringing Willems into 12. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So
anyway, Kino.
That could be the winning or losing of it in and of itself. But I don't want to hope for an injury or card to sway this game. I really don't. I'm going to put all that to the side now. I'm going to ignore all that. So really what I think this comes down to, really, it's going to be the least stato-ish thing I got to say tonight, is it could be a bounce, a kick, a break, a moment. But I think Ireland need to win this. And South Africa don't need to win this.
Yeah.
We want to avoid France like the plague. They are a horrible matchup for us. South Africa don't have that same fear of France at all. They're not a bad matchup for them whatsoever. I think South Africa will fancy putting the heebie-jeebies into them. It's a lot of pressure at a quarterfinal on home turf.
against a team who has been there, done that as well. Against
Been
Ireland, they
there.
don't have that.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So I think that actually could be what everything boils down to. I'm going to go for Ireland by 2.
Yeah, I have a preview article coming out for this game as well, and I went with Ireland by 3, but just like I can see that being
Yeah,
Ireland by
it's-
10, South Africa by 10, South Africa by like I
Oh, yeah.
genuinely can. There's
It's tough,
genuinely,
yeah.
I think, and I've said this before about games. Ireland are one of those teams. They don't really win an awful lot of games by 3 points. They pull
No.
on, they push clear. The South Africa game last November was nearly an anomaly in and of itself because we didn't really hit fourth or fifth gear, to be honest, in those games. Even the South Africa performance, I think both teams were only a lot of shadow boxing again. And I think there's so many areas. Ball and play, we mentioned, set piece is crucial. How do you beat the blitz defense? Kicking is huge. Ireland kick in field. You give Damien Willemse loads of time with the ball. Yeah, he might run it back, but he might just put it out of play as well because South Africa would prefer to get it off the field and forcing Ireland into coming back at them again. Like there's so many different facets to it. I think, as you said, I think Ireland need this more. And I do feel like South Africa would be very happy getting France in the quarterfinal simply because they've been there. France, if I'm France, the one team I'm afraid of in the quarterfinal is South Africa. It's not Ireland. It's definitely not Scotland. It's South Africa because they've been there. They've won it. Do you know?
just
And that's
lost all your
that's
Scottish
huge.
listeners, Kaelon.
I had lost them a long time ago. I had such a Finn Russell once. I had such a Finn Russell in this episode game on now. And that's just the way I see it. And I said at the start of the tournament, I said, and I'll back this now. Maybe this is slightly defeatist. I don't know. Ireland to win this game, South Africa to beat us in the final. I can't get that out of my head. That's where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
That would kill me. Like genuine, like that would be heartbreaking. But that's
I mean,
where
you
I'm
would have
leaning.
made a final. That's a first for you guys. So
Yeah,
should
I'd rather be
You
heartbroken
that
at a
a year
final
later.
than heartbroken at a quarterfinal, frankly. If I
Yeah,
had to choose
like,
between the two.
Reen, if you think we drink France dry when we win, imagine what'll happen if we lose and people are sitting in France waiting to get a flight home. You know, I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna say Ireland. But I will say, and I'm gonna pay homage to Cian's t-shirt for those. We are audio, so you can't really see it. For Ireland, like the opportunity to say fucking enorm here. Like it is absolutely massive for us that we get this win. And I do believe if Ireland win this game, I do believe they beat Scotland. I do believe they beat New Zealand. And they beat whoever comes out of the Barbie side of the draw. So this is huge. Like, and I said this in my piece. This is a de facto quarterfinal, semi-final. Like, but we get a second chance at it. Like it's fucking scary, lads. Like, let's just call a spade here. Like, never before have Ireland had this in a World Cup. They've never been in this situation. And it is scary. But the only thing is, no Irish team has ever adapted like this team. No Irish team has ever risen to the occasion as often, has ever handled adversity. No Irish team has ever closed out games in the manner that they do by playing their own game, not by reverting to type, by playing their own game. Like this is a different Irish team, and I have full confidence in them. The only thing that's holding me back is the fact that South Africa are world champions, and I think they are a much better team than 2 years ago. And I think that's the unfair marker that people judge them off is 2 years ago and the Lions tour that was turgid. I think they're a better team. I'm going to go with Ireland. 35,000 Irish fans expected into Paris. I think there's going to be a lot of French shouting for the Irish as well. And I think that's going to be huge. And I think if I'm South Africa, I'm looking around and I'm saying, right, I trust Etzebeth, Khaleesi, Dutoy, Colby, De Allende to rise to the occasion. But I'm worried about Willemse. I'm worried about Libach. I'm worried about Visa. Can these guys rise to it? You can say the same thing about Ireland, but that's just my view. I haven't watched them. And whatever happens, I think it's going to be the game of the weekend until we turn on Wales against Fiji and realize these two, or Wales against Australia, and realize these two teams really need to win. And that's the beauty of this World Cup. It is, it's right there. And that's, I haven't been this excited and this nervous for World Cup games since probably 2011. Like 2015, it felt like, oh, we're fine. And then we got 6 injuries in 10 minutes, and it was not fine anymore.
Yeah.
2019, you kind of knew deep down, like you were hiding behind the red flags, but they were red flags in front of you. You know, this feels different. I said it last week. I was walking through Galway City. There was so much green around the place. If Ireland win this game, the hype is going to hit a new level. You know, like we're going to combust as a nation. And yeah, there'll be naysayers, but fuck the naysayers. You know, so let's hopefully, fingers crossed, Cian, you can play your part by roaring or whatever else, and hopefully Ireland can get it done. And if they don't, it will have taken a better team effort, and that's the situation we're in. Ireland are not going to beat themselves. Are South Africa? Probably not, but Ireland definitely won't, and that's huge as well. You know, I don't think we'll beat ourselves. That's one thing I'm confident of. Hopefully my confidence is proven right. So 3 for Ireland, 1 for South Africa.
What a surprise.
What a surprise. We should have got 4 more people on, really, just to keep the trend going. But there's only so many 7-1 jokes you can make. At least the game can't physically finish 7-1. That's the best thing about this. We can write that off at least. Although there may be a joke in the 71st minute by some commentator.
Yeah.
Riaan, for your South African insight and everything, thank you very, very much for coming on. And
it's
been great having you on twice this week. And Cian, enjoy it over there. Jack, thank you very much for coming on as well. And for everyone who listened today, or even if this is after the game when you're listening, it wouldn't be a bad show, to be honest. It's been really enjoyable, and I hope you've all enjoyed it. As always, I'll be back on hopefully Sunday with the recap of this game, and a round review pod coming on Monday, which includes, of course, that huge clash. Australia against Wales. Australia have never been dumped out in the pool stages. They might be if results don't go their way on Sunday night.
Ooh.
That is enticing. So it's gonna pry me away from NFL Red Zone. It's that big. As always, if you like what you see or hear, please do subscribe, tell a friend. It does make a difference if you leave a review, and it's greatly appreciated. I have some news coming in the next few weeks with regards to the season ahead, so I hope you can stay tuned for that, especially if you're Munster leaning or URC leaning in particular. And as always, you can find the links to my socials and to the lads' socials, including Rian's brilliant YouTube page, which is getting bigger and bigger every month with his unique taste on rugby, I suppose we can put it that way. But until next time, until we speak again, hopefully we'll be talking after Ireland beat the Box. As I said, the opportunity, say fucking enorm. Take it easy.